The champagne flute feels cold in my hand, slick with condensation. My fingers tremble just slightly, not from nerves, not anymore, but from the sheer, vibrating energy of the day. Lace hugs my arms, the fabric a whisper against my skin, smelling faintly of lilies and something new, something like promise. The air in the grand hall is thick with perfume, anticipation, the murmur of voices rising and falling like a tide. My eyes find his across the room, the man I just promised forever to. He's laughing, sunlight catching the gold band on his finger, and for a second, the world narrows to just him, just us, bathed in that golden light. Then a shadow falls. She leans in close, the rustle of her silk dress a harsh sound in the periphery of my perfect moment. Her perfume, sharp and floral, assaults my senses, overriding the lilies. Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. They are flat, assessing, utterly cold. The ambient noise of the celebration seems to dim, replaced by the sudden, sharp intake of my own breath. She tilts her head, her eyes locking onto mine, and the corners of her mouth twitch with something that isn't joy, isn't even politeness. It's something predatory, something that makes the tiny hairs on my arms stand on end despite the warmth of the room. And then, so quiet only I can hear, her voice, like ice chips on velvet, slides into my ear, past the delicate netting of my veil, straight into my soul. "You know," she says, her gaze unwavering, filled with an ancient, weary certainty, "you will never be enough for him. You will never satisfy my son." The world stops. The laughter freezes in the air. The light dims. The chill that spreads through me has nothing to do with the condensation on my glass, and everything to do with the absolute conviction in her tone. It's not a warning. It's a verdict, delivered on the happiest day of my life. It's right now, standing here, feeling the weight of those words like a stone dropped into my chest, that I remember where I am, who I am. This story, it starts here, in this gilded cage of a ballroom, with a single, poisonous whisper. It's a story about trying to build a life on ground someone else is determined to salt. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know, bringing stories like this to light. Before this moment, this poison perfection, there was just life. A life I loved. A good life. I ran a small but successful design studio. Not interiors, not fashion.
Product design.
Functionality, aesthetics, how things felt in your hand, how they worked seamlessly in the background of your day. I loved the challenge of it, the quiet satisfaction of solving a problem no one knew they had until the solution existed. My office was a converted warehouse space, all exposed brick and natural light, filled with prototypes and sketches, and the hum of 3D printers. It was my sanctuary, my creation, a place where logic and beauty intertwined. I met him, my now husband Michael, at a terrible networking event I almost skipped. He was everything I wasn't: smooth, charismatic, working in finance, talking about markets and deals and things that felt a million miles from the tangible world of design. But he had this energy, this spark. He was funny, he listened, really listened, when I talked about my work. He seemed genuinely fascinated by the way I saw the world, the way I broke down problems into elegant solutions. It felt easy with him. Effortless. Like finding the missing piece of a puzzle you didn't even know you were working on. Our courtship was a whirlwind of late-night talks, exploring the city, discovering shared passions, a love for old movies, a terrible taste in karaoke bars, an oddly specific appreciation for perfectly brewed coffee. We built something beautiful, brick by brick, on mutual respect and genuine affection. I fell for him, hard and fast, believing in the future we were building together with the same quiet certainty I applied to my design work. Meeting his family was an experience. His father was a quiet, reserved man, a retired engineer who regarded me with polite curiosity. His sister was friendly, if a little distant. And then there was his mother, Eleanor. The first time I met her, she was perfectly gracious. Impeccably dressed, hosting a formal dinner that felt like stepping onto a movie set. Crystal glasses, silver platters, hushed tones. She asked about my work, nodding along, her expression neutral. But there was something in her eyes, a flicker, a subtle assessment that felt less like curiosity and more like categorization. Like she was filing me away, determining where I fit, or more likely didn't fit, into her world. Looking back, I see the signs I missed, the subtle jabs I dismissed as nerves or an older generation's formality. The way she'd gently steer the conversation away from my career towards Michael's achievements. The questions about my family that felt less like getting to know me and more like probing for weaknesses, for differences in background, in breeding. My family was loving, supportive, but not old money in the way Eleanor's was. My father, a self-made man, built his business from the ground up, a journey marked by hard work and grit, not inherited wealth and social pedigree. I was proud of that. Eleanor seemed less impressed, or perhaps more threatened. As the relationship with Michael deepened, so did the subtle friction with Eleanor. Wedding planning became a minefield. Every suggestion I made was met with a gentle but firm alternative. The venue I loved was too modern. My dress choice was interesting. The guest list was scrutinized with the intensity of a security check. Michael, bless him, tried to mediate, tried to smooth things over. He'd tell me, "That's just Mom. She's traditional. She means well," but I started to see the pattern. It wasn't about tradition. It was about control. It was about making sure everything fit her vision, erasing my input, bit by bit, until the wedding felt less like a celebration of our union and more like a coronation of Michael, overseen by his queen. I remember one particularly draining afternoon at a florist. I was showing the planner photos of the wild, abundant arrangements I envisioned, full of texture and unconventional blooms. Eleanor sat across the table, perfectly still, a small smile playing on her lips. When I finished, she simply said, "Of course, dear, those are very vibrant. But for a classic occasion like this, don't you think something more restrained? More elegant?" And she produced a photo of a tightly structured, all-white arrangement that looked like it belonged in a museum, beautiful but utterly devoid of warmth or personality. The planner looked at me, then at Eleanor, an apologetic shrug in her eyes. Eleanor's gaze was unwavering. She wasn't asking. She was telling. I conceded, feeling a little piece of my vision myself chipped away. These moments, small and seemingly insignificant on their own, accumulated like tiny cuts. They bled slowly, invisibly, until I felt a constant, dull ache of inadequacy whenever she was around. I started second-guessing myself, wondering if I was indeed too much or not enough for this world I was marrying into. The wedding day arrived, a blur of activity, nerves, and forced smiles. Despite the compromises, the venue was stunning, the dress felt beautiful on me, and seeing Michael waiting for me at the end of the aisle washed away many of the anxieties. The ceremony itself was perfect, sacred, a bubble of genuine emotion in the midst of the surrounding social performance. And then came the reception, the mingling, the toasts, the strategic positioning of Eleanor, always nearby, always watching. The air felt charged like before a storm. I tried to enjoy myself, to focus on the joy, the love, the friends and family who were genuinely happy for us. But in the periphery, I could feel her presence, a cold spot in the warm room. And then, that whisper, "You will never be enough for him. You will never satisfy my son." The words hang in the air between us, invisible tendrils of poison curling around my heart. My mind races, trying to process the sheer audacity, the cruelty of it. On this day, at this moment, what kind of person does that? What kind of mother? I manage a shaky smile, my voice barely a whisper back. "Eleanor," I say, my throat tight, "today isn't about satisfying anyone. It's about love." She lets out a soft, humorless chuckle. "Love is a lovely notion, dear. But keeping a man like Michael, that requires substance. Something I'm not sure you possess." The ice in her eyes hardens. There's no room for interpretation. This isn't motherly concern. It's a declaration of war. She gives me a final, thin smile, a victor's smile, and turns away to greet another guest, leaving me standing there, the festive music suddenly sounding hollow, the air thick with the unspoken challenge she just laid down. The rest of the reception is a blur of forced smiles and polite conversation. Inside, I'm a hurricane. The joy I felt minutes ago is replaced by a churning mix of hurt, anger, and confusion. I keep glancing at Michael, laughing with his friends, oblivious to the battle that just took place. Should I tell him? Ruin his day with this ugliness? He defend her, make excuses, say I misunderstood. The familiar script. I spend the evening in a kind of dissociated state, going through the motions, cutting the cake, dancing the first dance, tossing the bouquet, all while Eleanor's words echo in my head. You will never be enough. You will never satisfy my son. It's not just an insult, it's a prophecy she intends to fulfill. The days and weeks that follow are a strange transition. Married life is wonderful with Michael. We settle into our routine, build our home together, reinforce the foundations of our relationship. But Eleanor's whisper is a ghost in the room. It colors every interaction I have with her. The subtle digs I might have ignored before now feel like calculated attacks. The phone calls. Oh dear, Michael sounds a little tired. Are you sure he's getting enough rest? His job is so demanding. Translation. You're not taking care of him properly. The unsolicited advice. Michael mentioned you're redecorating the living room. I saw the most darling settee at expensive designer store. Much more appropriate for a station. Translation. Your taste is inadequate. The constant comparisons. When Michael was dating Sarah, she was such an excellent cook. He always loved her Sunday roasts. Translation. You fail where others succeeded. It's a relentless drip, drip of passive aggression, designed to erode my confidence, to plant seeds of doubt in Michael's mind, and I now understand. To push me away. Her goal isn't just to make me feel small, it's to make me leave. To prove her prophecy true. I try talking to Michael. I tell him how his mother's comments make me feel, how they undermine me. He listens, he truly does, but his response is always the same. She doesn't mean it like that. That's just how she is. She loves me. She's just trying to look out for me. He's caught in the middle, loyal to his mother, loving towards me, and utterly blind to the manipulative nature of her behavior. He sees a difficult but well-meaning parent. I see a strategist wielding emotional weapons. This creates a new kind of strain on our marriage. It's not his fault, not really, but his inability to see the truth, to stand up to her, leaves me feeling isolated and unprotected. I try to establish boundaries. I start limiting how often we see Eleanor, how long our phone calls are. I try to deflect her comments with humor or polite disagreement. But she's relentless. She finds new ways to get under my skin. She'll call Michael directly to complain about me, putting him in an awkward position. She'll show up unannounced. She'll use family gatherings as a stage for her subtle power plays. One particularly humiliating moment comes at a holiday dinner. I had spent hours preparing a complex dish I was really proud of. When I presented it, Eleanor took a tiny forkful, chewed slowly, and then, with a sympathetic sigh, said, "Oh, dear. It's very rustic, isn't it?" So different from what Michael is used to, the implication hung in the air. I was unsophisticated, my efforts inferior. The rest of the meal, I could barely swallow, the food tasting like ash. Michael, again, didn't seem to notice the deliberate cruelty. This period is a constant struggle. I feel like I'm fighting an invisible enemy, one who uses politeness as a shield and manipulation as a sword. My confidence, which was so strong in my own world, begins to waver. I start questioning everything. My marriage, my career, my worthiness. Eleanor's words echo in the quiet moments, feeding the insecurity. You will never be enough. I pour more energy into my work, finding solace in the tangible world of design where problems have solutions and outcomes are measurable. My business continues to grow, slowly, steadily. I land bigger clients, hire more staff. It's a counterpoint to the emotional chaos of my personal life. In the studio, I am competent, respected, in control. At home, dealing with Eleanor, I feel like a teenager again, awkward and unsure. The conflict escalates. Eleanor starts hinting to Michael that my business is a distraction, that I'm not focused enough on our home, our future family. She suggests, not outright, but through veiled comments, that I should consider cutting back, focusing on more important things. She frames it as concern for Michael, for his happiness, but it's clear she sees my independence, my success, as a threat. My father, bless him, sees what's happening. He's observed Eleanor's behavior, the toll it's taking on me. He knows the steel that runs through me, the determination I inherited from him. He doesn't interfere directly in the conflict, but he offers quiet support, a listening ear, and subtle encouragement. Keep building, he tells me during our weekly calls. Build your own world. It's the strongest foundation you can have. The crisis deepens when a major project at my studio hits a snag. It's a complex piece of work involving significant investment and a high-profile client. The pressure is immense. At the same time, Eleanor's interference reaches a new level of intensity. She somehow gets wind of a minor setback in the project and uses it as ammunition. "Poor Michael," she says to him, just loud enough for me to overhear during a family brunch. "He must be so worried. That business of yours, it seems like such a burden. Perhaps you're not quite equipped to handle something so large." It's a direct hit, linking my professional struggles to my personal worth, implying I'm not just failing at home, but failing in my career too, therefore proving I'm fundamentally incapable of satisfying her son. The injustice of it burns. I'm working myself to the bone, navigating a difficult professional challenge, and she's using it to attack me, to plant doubts in Michael's mind. I snap. Not outwardly, not yet. But something inside me breaks. The hope that I could appease her, that I could earn her respect, that we could find a way to coexist peacefully, it shatters. I see her for what she is, not just a difficult mother, but a destructive force, actively seeking to dismantle my life, my marriage, my sense of self-worth. The constant pressure, the isolation I feel even within my marriage, the professional stress exacerbated by her attacks, it all converges into a feeling of being utterly overwhelmed, of hitting rock bottom. Everything feels fragile, on the verge of collapse. My carefully constructed life, my marriage, my career, they all seem threatened by this relentless, insidious adversary. I feel trapped, exhausted, desperate. One rainy afternoon, sitting alone in my quiet studio, the prototypes around me feeling like useless junk, I stare out the window at the gray sky. Eleanor's voice is a low hum in my head. Never enough. Never satisfy. The words loop, a cruel mantra. The feeling of despair is heavy, suffocating. What am I fighting for? What's the point? It feels like a losing battle, one designed for me to fail. And then, amidst the despair, a flicker. A spark of something cold and hard. My father's words. Build your own world. It's the strongest foundation. He hadn't just meant my studio. He'd meant build a life, a future, so solid, so undeniable, that it couldn't be shaken by external forces, by manipulative words, by carefully orchestrated campaigns of doubt. The despair doesn't vanish, but it's joined by a growing, quiet rage. This woman wants me to fail? She wants to prove her point? She wants to see me pack up and leave Michael, defeated and broken. Not a chance. In that moment, staring at the rain-streaked window of my struggling studio, the turning point arrives. I stop being the victim, the one trying to survive her attacks. I decide, with a clarity that feels like ice water in my veins, to change the rules of the game. I would stop defending myself and start building something so powerful, so undeniable, that it would render her attacks not just ineffective, but utterly irrelevant. This wouldn't be about revenge, not really. It would be about vindication, about proving my worth, not to her, that was impossible, but to myself, to Michael, and to the world. It would be about building that unshakable foundation my father talked about, one that she couldn't touch. The idea crystallizes slowly, then with blinding speed. It involves my father. It involves my business. It involves a scale of ambition I hadn't previously considered. My father's business is in manufacturing, specifically components for various industries. My expertise is in design and user experience. For years, we talked casually about collaborating, finding synergies between our companies. We'd even worked on a small project together once, a custom part for one of my clients' products, and it had been a success. The idea is this: a joint venture. A significant, high-profile partnership that would combine his manufacturing prowess with my design innovation. Not just a collaboration, but a formal, strategic alliance, pooling resources, expertise, and capital to launch something entirely new. Something big. Something that would require significant investment and, crucially, would demonstrate, in the most undeniable terms, my capability, my value, my strength. I call my father. I lay out the idea, the vision, the scale. I'm nervous, laying bare not just a business proposal, but the underlying emotional drive, the need to build this fortress against Eleanor's attacks. He listens patiently, quietly. When I finish, there's a long pause on the line. My heart pounds in my chest. Had I gone too far? Was it too ambitious? Too much driven by spite? Then he speaks. His voice is calm, steady, filled with understanding. That's a bold plan, he says. A smart plan. He gets it. He gets me. He doesn't dismiss the emotional component, the desire for vindication, but he sees the solid business logic behind it. He sees the potential. We start working in secret. Meetings are held in neutral locations late at night. Lawyers are brought in, non-disclosure agreements signed. We delve into market research, financial projections, operational logistics. My studio becomes a hub of activity, the air thick with purpose and secrecy. The stress of the deepening crisis is still there. The difficult client project, the pressure from Eleanor, but now it's overlaid with a new kind of tension, the exhilarating, terrifying tension of a covert operation. I have to be careful. I can't let Michael know. Not yet. He would be excited, supportive, but I know he'd innocently mention it to his mother, and she would find a way to sabotage it. This needed to be undeniable, a fait accompli, before she even knew it existed. The secrecy weighs on me, creating a distance between Michael and me. He sees I'm busy, stressed, focused on my work, but he doesn't know the true scale of what's happening, the silent war being waged. Eleanor, meanwhile, continues her campaign, blissfully unaware that I've moved past defense and into strategic offense. She sees my stress, my fatigue, perhaps interprets it as her efforts bearing fruit. She continues her subtle undermining, her critical comments, her attempts to drive a wedge between Michael and me. Each interaction, each phone call, is a performance. I maintain a calm exterior, deflect her jabs with bland politeness, all while my mind is racing, calculating, focused on the objective. The initial client project, the one that had felt like a sign of impending failure, ironically becomes a proving ground, a low-stakes version of the larger challenge. I rally my team, apply the same focused determination I'm channeling into the joint venture, and we turn the project around. It's a success. A small victory that fuels the bigger plan. It confirms that I have the skills, the resilience, the vision. Months pass in this state of intense, secret activity. The joint venture takes shape. The numbers are significant. The potential is enormous. We acquire a manufacturing facility, hire key personnel, develop the initial product line. My father handles the heavy lifting on the manufacturing and finance side. I lead the design, innovation, and market strategy. We are building not just a company, but a statement. A statement that my worth isn't defined by whether I can satisfy someone else's preconceived notions, but by what I can create, what I can build. The date is set for the formal announcement of the joint venture. We decide to make it public at a large, industry-wide gala dinner. My father is a keynote speaker. It's the perfect stage. High profile, undeniable, and crucially, Eleanor will be there. Michael's family are usually present at such events, part of their social and business circle. The tension leading up to that night is almost unbearable. It feels like the culmination of everything, the years of subtle attacks, the self-doubt, the struggle, the secret work. This isn't just a business announcement. It's my moment of truth. The night of the gala arrives. I choose my dress carefully. Not something flamboyant or overly attention-seeking, but something elegant, understated, and powerful. I feel different. Not nervous like I was at my wedding, but focused, grounded. The quiet determination has solidified into an inner core of steel. Michael notices the change in me. He comments on my calm, my presence. He doesn't know the reason, but he feels the shift. He's proud of my success with the studio, of the way I navigated the recent project challenges. Our relationship, though strained by my secrecy and his mother's interference, has a fundamental strength that has endured. He still doesn't fully grasp the depth of Eleanor's campaign, but he knows I've been hurt, and he's tried, in his way, to protect me. We arrive at the ballroom. It's even grander than the one where I got married. Crystal chandeliers, polished marble floors, hundreds of people dressed in formal wear, the air buzzing with networking and anticipation. We make our way through the crowd, greeting acquaintances, exchanging polite conversation. I scan the room, my heart giving a tiny lurch when I spot Eleanor and Michael's father seated at a prominent table near the stage. Eleanor is holding court, perfectly composed, a picture of matriarchal grace. She sees me, offers a tight smile that doesn't reach her eyes. The familiar chill. We are seated at our table. Eleanor is a few tables away, but close enough that I can feel the weight of her gaze intermittently. She doesn't engage directly, but I see her watching me, occasionally leaning in to whisper something to the person next to her, followed by a subtle glance in my direction. I imagine the narrative she's spinning, how stressed I look, how managing a business is clearly too much for me, how Michael must be worried. Let her. It doesn't matter anymore. The dinner progresses. The main course is served. My father's turn to speak is approaching. My hands, resting in my lap under the table, are clenched tight. My heart is a drumbeat against my ribs. The years of frustration, of feeling inadequate, of fighting this silent war, are culminating in the next few minutes. My father is introduced. He walks to the podium, a calm, confident presence. He thanks the organizers, makes a few polite, self-deprecating jokes, warming up the audience. He talks about the industry, about innovation, about the importance of partnership. Eleanor is watching him, a polite, expectant look on her face. She likely anticipates hearing about his company's recent performance, perhaps a standard announcement about a new factory or a large contract. And then he pivots. Tonight, he says, his voice projected clearly through the sound system, filling the vast room. I want to talk about the future, about building on strength, about combining vision and capability to create something truly transformative. He pauses, his gaze sweeping across the room. I hold my breath. For many years, he continues, my company has focused on manufacturing excellence, delivering quality, scale, and reliability. And for many years, my daughter, my name, has been building something equally impressive in the world of design, innovation, user-centric thinking, a vision for how products can seamlessly integrate into our lives. He turns his head slightly, his eyes finding mine across the room. He smiles, a warm, proud smile that cuts through the tension building inside me. Tonight, he states, his voice gaining power, his gaze now directed more broadly at the audience. I am incredibly proud to announce a major new venture. A partnership that combines the manufacturing strength of my company, father's company name, with the design leadership and innovation of my daughter and her studio, my studio name. A murmur goes through the crowd. This isn't a minor collaboration. This sounds significant. He continues, laying out the details. The strategic vision, the market we are targeting, the potential for disruption. He speaks of pooled resources, shared expertise, a powerful synergy. And then he says the number. This joint venture, he announces, his voice clear and strong, represents a combined investment of $50 million. A $50 million commitment to innovation, to growth, and to building the future. $50 million. The number hangs in the air, huge and undeniable. Silence descends on the room. Not the polite quiet of attentive listening, but a stunned, breathless silence. Hundreds of heads turn, first towards my father at the podium, then, guided by his earlier look, towards me. My eyes are fixed on Eleanor. Her face. The carefully constructed mask of polite interest shatters. Her eyes widen. Her mouth falls slightly open. The color drains from her face, leaving it stark white against the rich fabric of her dress. She looks utterly, completely blindsided. Her posture, which moments ago was so regally composed, seems to stiffen, then falter, as if the air has been sucked out of her. The subtle, knowing smirk that so often played on her lips is gone, replaced by naked shock, disbelief, and something else, something that looks a lot like fear. Her son, Michael, next to her, looks equally stunned, but his expression quickly shifts to one of proud astonishment. He looks at me, beaming, then back at his mother, a flicker of confusion crossing his face at her reaction. But I can only see Eleanor. The woman who whispered poison in my ear on my wedding day. The woman who spent years trying to chip away at my worth, to convince me and everyone else that I was inadequate, that I would never be enough. She sits there, frozen, silenced by a number, by an achievement, by a reality she never saw coming. The $50 million isn't just capital, it's a mic drop. It's the answer to her whisper, shouted from a global stage. It's the tangible proof of my capability, my strength, my ability to build something massive and successful. It's the ultimate validation, not just of my business acumen, but of my resilience, my refusal to be diminished by her negativity. The silence stretches, thick with unspoken reactions. I can feel the eyes on me, the shift in the energy of the room. The polite acquaintances who used to see me primarily as Michael's wife, the one with the interesting little business, now look at me with new eyes. With respect. With curiosity. My father finishes his remarks to a wave of applause that breaks the tension. People immediately start turning towards my table, eager to congratulate me, to ask questions. The air is buzzing again, but the tone has changed entirely. Michael reaches for my hand under the table, squeezing it tightly. $50 million, he whispers, his voice full of awe. You did this? And Dad? You never said anything. I smile at him, a real smile this time, one that reaches my eyes. It was a work in progress, I say, the dry humor a quiet victory in itself. The secrecy, the strain it put on us, is a hurdle we'll need to clear, but in this moment, his pride outweighs everything else. Eleanor does not approach me immediately. She is surrounded by a few people at her table, speaking in hushed tones, her gestures tight, constrained. I see her glance at me again, but the cold certainty is gone from her eyes, replaced by a scrambling attempt to regain composure, to project an image of someone who was not just moments ago rendered speechless by her daughter-in-law's undeniable success. The rest of the evening is a blur of congratulations, introductions, and discussions about the joint venture. I am no longer just Michael's wife. I am a principal in a major new enterprise. My name is linked, professionally and financially, with my respected father's business. The foundation is built. The world I've built is solid, visible, undeniable. When I finally get a moment alone with Michael's father, he gives me a quiet, firm handshake. Remarkable, he says, a rare smile on his face. Very impressive. Your father is very proud. His words, understated but sincere, mean more than the loud applause. Eleanor does finally approach me, much later in the evening, after the initial rush has subsided. She's recovered her composure, but there's a brittle quality to it, like thin ice. She offers a forced smile, her eyes still holding that flicker of shock and resentment. Well, she says, her voice tight, that was quite the announcement, dear. Very unexpected. I meet her gaze directly, my own smile calm and genuine. There's no triumph in it, no cruelty, just quiet confidence. Yes, I say softly. It was time. She searches my face, perhaps looking for the insecure young woman she tried to break, the one who trembled at her whisper. But that person isn't here anymore. In her place is someone who has built her own world, brick by painstaking brick. She opens her mouth, perhaps to offer a backhanded compliment, a subtle criticism, to regain some shred of her perceived authority. But no words come out. The verdict she delivered on my wedding day, "You will never satisfy my son," now hangs in the air, not as a prophecy, but as a pathetic, irrelevant echo. How could my worth, my ability to satisfy her son, possibly be measured by her narrow standards when I am standing here, a partner in a $50 million venture, built on my own merit and vision? Her judgment is meaningless now. She closes her mouth, her expression freezing into something unreadable. She stands there for a moment, a statue in her expensive dress, utterly, completely silent. The silence she intended to impose on me, the silence of inadequacy and defeat, now envelopes her. It is the most satisfying silence I have ever experienced. She eventually murmurs something about needing to speak to someone else and retreats, not with her usual elegant glide, but a slightly stiff, hurried walk. The victory isn't in her discomfort, though there is a certain, admittedly human, satisfaction in that. The true victory is internal. It's knowing that her power over me is gone. Her words can no longer wound me. Her disapproval cannot diminish me. I built this with my father's help, yes, but on the foundation of my own skills, my own resilience, my own refusal to be defined by someone else's limitations. The aftermath isn't a fairy tale ending. Eleanor doesn't miraculously transform into a loving mother-in-law. The relationship remains strained, polite, distant. But the dynamic has shifted irrevocably. She still watches, she still judges, but her power is gone. She is the one rendered irrelevant by the undeniable reality of my success. Michael and I talk deeply about the secrecy, about the strain. He comes to understand, slowly, the pressure I was under, the silent war I was fighting. He sees his mother's behavior differently, not just as how she is, but as something that caused real pain and required me to build this fortress to protect myself and our future. Our relationship strengthens, forged in the fire of shared struggle and newfound understanding. Building a $50 million joint venture changes things. It changes how I'm seen, how I navigate the world. But the most profound change is internal. The whisper is still a memory, a scar, but it no longer dictates my worth. I know who I am, what I'm capable of. And that knowledge, that unshakable foundation, is worth more than any number. The journey was hard. It was lonely at times. It required a strength I didn't know I had until it was tested. But standing here now, looking back at that young woman trembling with a champagne flute in her hand, hearing that cruel whisper, I know I wouldn't change it. Because the struggle forged the steel within me. It taught me the power of building my own world, of defining my own success, independent of anyone else's approval or disapproval. And sometimes, the most powerful response to poison isn't an antidote, but building something so strong, so vibrant, that the poison simply cannot survive in its presence. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.